In a world full of endless noise, true power lies not in shouting but in silence. The Stoics knew this well. They mastered the art of restraint, of letting silence speak louder than words. Today, we will uncover 10 timeless traits of people who speak less and live with more wisdom, more clarity, and more strength. Imagine sitting in a crowded room. Everyone talks, argues, interrupts. But one person stays quiet, calm, collected, unshaken. That silence captures more attention than 1,000 words ever could. This is the essence of Stoicism. And this is the journey we begin today. Trait 1, Strategic Silence. There was a time in my life when I believed that the person who spoke the loudest was always the strongest. I thought if I could defend myself quickly, argue fast, and prove my point right away, people would respect me more. But with age and with the wisdom of Stoicism, I learned that this belief was far from the truth. You see, silence itself can be a form of strength. Not the silence of weakness, not the silence of fear, but the silence that comes from inner control. The Stoics called this the art of restraint, choosing when to speak, and more importantly, when not to. Think about a heated argument you've witnessed, or maybe one you've been part of. Voices rise, emotions flare, and words are thrown like weapons. In that moment, it feels like speaking faster or louder will help you win. But does it really? Most of the time, all it creates is more noise, more hurt, and more misunderstanding. Now imagine another scene. A negotiation at work. Tension fills the room. The other side talks and talks, trying to push you, trying to corner you. Instead of rushing to respond, you pause. You remain calm. You let silence hang in the air. Suddenly, the balance shifts. They start second guessing. They wonder what you're thinking, whether you have a stronger position, whether you see through their words. That silence unsettles them. Without saying a word, you've spoken volumes. This is what I call strategic silence, choosing not to answer right away, but to give yourself space. Space to think, space to breathe, space to act with clarity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Strategic silence is exactly that power. And it's not only about controlling others, it's about controlling yourself. I remember a moment with my son, many years ago. He was a teenager then, frustrated, shouting things he didn't truly mean. My younger self would have argued back. I would have tried to correct him, to prove him wrong. But instead, I stayed quiet. I listened. I waited. Minutes later, his anger softened, and he began to explain what was really troubling him. That silence gave him room to be heard, and it gave me the chance to understand. Sometimes, the greatest gift you can give to someone is your quiet presence. The Stoics believed that silence wasn't emptiness, it was a tool. A tool that lets you observe, understand, and decide wisely. And when you practice it, you'll notice something: the world slows down. The chaos outside doesn't control you anymore. You begin to see through the noise, and what once felt urgent suddenly doesn't matter as much. Strategic silence is not about avoiding life. It's about engaging with life in a way that is measured, intentional, and strong. It protects you from saying things you'll regret. It gives you authority without aggression. And it teaches others that your words, when they finally come, are worth listening to. If the first lesson we've just learned about the power of restraint teaches us how silence can protect us, then the next lesson builds on this foundation, the art of listening deeply. Because silence isn't just the absence of speaking, it is also the presence of awareness. And when you learn to listen more than you speak, you discover truths that most people miss. Trait 2, Deep Listening. After learning the power of silence, the next natural step is learning how to listen, truly listen. Because silence is not just the absence of words. It is the space where listening begins. I still remember a conversation with a close friend many years ago. He was going through a hard time, marriage struggles, financial worries, the kind of burdens that can make a person feel completely lost. As he spoke, I realized how often in the past I would have interrupted with advice, quick solutions, or even my own stories. But that day, I stayed quiet. I leaned in. I listened not just to his words, but to the pauses between them, the tremble in his voice, the things he didn't say. And that changed everything. He later told me that my silence gave him more comfort than any advice could have. What he needed was not my words, but my presence. He needed someone to hear him without judgment, without interruption. That moment taught me that listening is not a passive act. It's an active choice. A gift we give to others. The Stoics valued this deeply. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." In deep listening, we honor not only the speaker but also ourselves. Because when you listen, you learn. You gather wisdom. You see the world through another's eyes. And often, you realize that people reveal more in their silence than in their speech. Think about it, how many times in your life have you spoken too quickly, only to regret it later? And how many times have you missed the meaning behind someone's words because you were too busy preparing your response? With age, we learn that rushing to speak often blinds us, while listening opens our eyes. Deep listening is not just about relationships with others, it's also about the relationship with yourself. When you sit in silence, you begin to hear the voice inside you. You notice your worries, your fears, your hopes. You begin to ask, why am I feeling this way? What do I truly want? What matters most right now? These questions guide you toward clarity. And clarity is wisdom. Let me give you another example. Imagine you're at work, in a meeting where everyone is eager to prove themselves. People talk over one another, pushing their ideas forward. But you stay quiet, attentive. You catch details others miss. You notice hesitation, hidden tension, opportunities no one else sees. When you finally speak, your words carry weight not because you spoke often, but because you listened first. This is the gift of deep listening. It allows you to connect more deeply with people. It creates trust. It builds respect. And it also helps you avoid mistakes born from ignorance. When I look back at my younger years, I realize how much energy I wasted trying to be heard, instead of trying to hear. Now, after 40, I see the beauty in slowing down. In letting others finish. In giving silence the chance to reveal truth. Strategic silence, our first lesson, teaches us how to control our reactions. Deep listening, this second lesson, teaches us how to connect with others, and with ourselves. Together, they form the foundation of wisdom. And from this foundation, we move forward to the next step, inner control. Because once you learn to listen deeply, you begin to understand yourself, and that understanding is the key to mastering your own mind. Trait 3, Inner Control. After learning to listen deeply, both to others and to yourself, something powerful begins to happen. You start to realize that the greatest battles you face are not out there in the world, they are inside of you. The Stoics were clear about this. Epictetus said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. At first, those words seemed simple to me. But the older I grew, the more I understood how difficult and how essential they truly are. Think about the last time you lost your temper. Maybe it was with a colleague who didn't respect your work. Or a family member who said something careless. In that moment, it feels like they control your emotions. They push, you react. They insult, you defend. But when you step back, you realize they didn't control you. You gave them control. I remember a story from my own life. Years ago, I was driving home from work, tired after a long day. Another driver cut me off aggressively, nearly causing an accident. My first instinct was anger. I felt my chest tighten, my jaw clench, my hands gripping the wheel too hard. For a moment, I was ready to shout, to chase, to prove something. But then I caught myself. I remembered the words of Marcus Aurelius, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." So I breathed. I let the car pass. And instead of anger, I chose calm. That day, I won a small battle against myself. And it was more satisfying than winning any fight on the road. Inner control is not about ignoring your feelings. It's about guiding them. It's about asking yourself, do I want this situation to rule me? Or do I want to rule myself? When you begin to master this, life feels different. You stop being pulled like a puppet by every rude comment, every unfair situation, every unexpected change. You begin to anchor yourself. And this control doesn't just protect you, it protects those you love. When you keep your composure, you bring calm into your home, into your workplace, into every relationship. People trust you more, because they know you won't explode at the first sign of trouble. You become a steady presence in a shaky world. But let me be honest, this is not easy. Even now, after years of practice, I still stumble. I still feel anger, fear, worry. The difference is, I no longer let them decide for me. I pause. I listen. I choose my response. That choice, that pause, is where true power lies. Inner control is the bridge between silence and action. Silence gave us space. Listening gave us wisdom. But inner control gives us direction. It teaches us that while we cannot control the world, we can control our part in it. And once you learn this, you begin to see a new possibility. Speaking less is not about saying nothing. It's about choosing words with purpose. Which leads us naturally to our next lesson, the power of thoughtful words. Trade 4, thoughtful words. After you've learned to control your inner world, something shifts. You no longer speak out of impulse. You no longer use words as weapons of anger or tools of pride. Instead, you begin to see words for what they truly are: powerful, irreversible choices. I didn't always understand this. In my younger years, I often spoke too quickly. I wanted to prove I was right, or to defend myself before anyone could doubt me. But with time, I realized, most of my regrets in life came not from the words I never said, but from the words I said too soon. The Stoics remind us to weigh our words with care. Seneca once wrote, "Speech is the mirror of the soul, as a man speaks, so is he." If our words reflect who we are, then careless words reflect a careless soul. Thoughtful words, however, reflect wisdom. Think about a time when someone you respected spoke only once in a meeting, but everyone remembered it. Why? Because they waited. They chose their words carefully. And when they finally spoke, their voice carried weight. That is the gift of restraint joined with thoughtfulness. I remember a moment with my daughter, many years ago. She came home from school upset, tears running down her face. My first instinct was to correct her, to tell her not to cry, to remind her to be strong. But then I paused. I thought carefully before speaking. Instead of rushing into advice, I said just one sentence: "I hear you. I'm here for you." Those words were simple, but they carried more comfort than any lecture could. That day, I learned that thoughtful words don't need to be many, they just need to be true. Words can heal, or they can wound. They can build trust, or they can destroy it. When we speak less and think more, our words become like seeds planted in fertile soil, slow to grow, but strong when they take root. The Stoic way teaches us that thoughtful words come from thoughtful living. You pause. You reflect. You ask yourself, is this necessary? Is this kind? Does it align with my values? And if the answer is no, you hold your silence. But if the answer is yes, your words carry the force of clarity, kindness, and conviction. And here is something I've learned: when you control your words, you gain more respect than when you try to dominate a conversation. People may forget long speeches, but they never forget words that touched their heart at the right moment. As we move forward, remember the foundation we've built so far. Strategic silence gave us strength. Deep listening gave us wisdom. Inner control gave us direction. And now, thoughtful words give us influence, the kind of influence rooted not in noise, but in truth. But there is another lesson waiting ahead. Even when we speak with care, the world around us will sometimes collapse into noise, chaos, and confusion. The question then is, can we remain calm? Can we keep our balance when everything seems to fall apart? That's where our next lesson begins: learning to stay calm in chaos. Trait 5, Calm in Chaos. Life has a way of testing us in the moments we least expect. One phone call can change your day. One argument can shake your peace. One piece of bad news can turn your world upside down. And yet, in those very moments, the Stoics remind us, the storm outside cannot destroy you, unless you let it inside. I remember one night, years ago, when everything seemed to collapse at once. My father was in the hospital. My work was falling behind. Bills were stacking up. And as if that wasn't enough, the car broke down on the side of the road. I sat there, staring at the wheel, feeling the weight of it all. The younger version of me would have panicked, shouted, cursed my luck. But that night, I did something different. I took a deep breath. I told myself, this moment does not decide me. My response does. Slowly, I called for help. Slowly, I made my way to the hospital. And though nothing around me changed instantly, something inside me shifted. I was calm. And that calmness gave me the strength to take the next step, and then the next. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are disturbed, it is not by things, but by the opinion which you form about them. The chaos wasn't the broken car, or the unpaid bills, or even the fear of losing my father. The chaos was my own mind. And once I learned to calm it, the world outside lost its power over me. Now think of your own life. Maybe it's the stress of deadlines, or the pressure of raising a family, or the fear of growing older. The truth is, you cannot stop the storms of life. But you can choose not to drown in them. You can be the calm center, even when the world spins out of control. And here's the surprising thing: when you remain calm, you don't just save yourself, you give strength to others. Your children, your friends, your co-workers, they notice. They lean on your calmness. Your peace becomes a shelter for them. Calm in chaos doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means facing them without fear. It means breathing when others panic, listening when others shout, acting with clarity when others are blinded by emotion. It is courage, hidden in stillness. The Stoics practiced this daily. They imagined loss, disaster, and hardship not to scare themselves, but to prepare their minds. They trained to meet chaos with calm, to remind themselves, this too shall pass. And you know what? It always does. Every storm ends. Every night gives way to morning. The only question is, will you survive it with panic, or will you endure it with peace? Strategic silence taught us restraint. Deep listening gave us wisdom. Thoughtful words gave us influence. Now, calm in chaos gives us resilience, the ability to stand firm when everything else shakes. And from this calmness comes the next lesson: learning to set your own course, to live by your own direction. Because once you stop being thrown around by chaos, you can finally choose where to go. That is the heart of our next trait. Trait 6, set your own course. When you have learned to remain calm in chaos, something powerful begins to unfold. You finally see the world more clearly. And with that clarity comes a choice: Will you keep drifting with the current of other people's expectations, or will you set your own course? For much of my early life, I lived by what others thought I should do. Parents, teachers, colleagues, society, everyone seemed to have a map for my life. Take this job, buy that house, live this way. And for a while, I followed. But somewhere after 40, I realized I was living a life that was not truly mine. I was on someone else's path. The Stoics remind us, a man who does not control himself will forever be led by others. These words hit me deeply. Because isn't that the truth? If we do not choose our direction, the world will gladly choose it for us. I recall a conversation I once had with a friend nearing retirement. He admitted, with a quiet sadness, that most of his choices had been made to please others: his parents, his boss, even his neighbors. I lived for approval, he said, but I never lived for myself. His regret was not that he failed, but that he never tried on his own terms. That moment taught me something vital: the greatest tragedy is not failing on your path, but succeeding on a path that was never yours. Setting your own course doesn't mean rejecting everyone around you. It doesn't mean selfishness. It means having the courage to pause, to reflect, and to ask, what truly matters to me? What do I value? What do I want my days, my years, my life to stand for? Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to act according to nature, meaning, to act in harmony with his own principles, not the noise of the crowd. For us, it may mean stepping back from constant comparison, from chasing what others chase, and instead choosing goals that align with our inner compass. This is not easy. Sometimes it means saying no to invitations that don't serve you. Sometimes it means walking away from a job that drains your soul. Sometimes it even means disappointing people you love because their vision for your life isn't the same as your own. But here's the truth: when you start living by your values, those who truly care for you will see the strength in your choice. When you set your own course, your life becomes lighter. You stop running in circles trying to keep up. You stop measuring yourself against others. And you begin to walk with purpose, one step at a time, toward the life you were meant to live. Strategic silence gave us strength. Deep listening gave us wisdom. Inner control gave us direction. Calm in chaos gave us resilience. And now, setting your own course gives us freedom, the freedom to live, not by accident, but by design. And once you begin to walk your own path, another lesson reveals itself. Because even on the right path, challenges will come. People will test you, tempt you, even provoke you. The next step is learning how to protect that path, how to set boundaries with grace, without losing your inner peace. That is where our journey takes us next. Trait 7, set boundaries with grace. When you begin to set your own course, something becomes clear: you cannot walk that path freely if you let everyone else control your time, your energy, and your heart. That is why the next lesson is about boundaries. For many of us, especially as we get older, boundaries can feel difficult. We don't want to hurt anyone. We don't want to appear selfish. We've been taught to always be available, to always say yes. But the truth is, without boundaries, your life is no longer your own. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, I said yes to everything: extra projects at work, favors for friends, family demands, endless obligations. At first, I thought I was being kind, helpful, responsible. But slowly, I began to notice I was exhausted. I had no time for myself, no energy left for the things that truly mattered. I was present for everyone else but absent in my own life. The Stoics remind us that living with virtue means living with clarity. And clarity often requires saying no. Seneca once said, "No man has unlimited time. If you don't guard it carefully, others will waste it for you." Setting boundaries does not mean building walls. It does not mean shutting people out. It means choosing with wisdom where your energy flows. And when you do it with grace, with kindness and calm, you discover that boundaries are not selfish at all. They are acts of respect. Respect for yourself, and respect for others. Think about it this way. If you agree to something out of guilt, resentment grows. But if you say no with honesty and kindness, you create space for healthier relationships. People may not always like your boundaries, but they will come to respect them because they sense the steadiness behind them. I remember telling a close colleague once, "I cannot take on this project right now. I need to focus on what's already on my plate." My voice was steady, not defensive. At first, there was silence. But then he nodded and said, "I understand." That moment taught me that boundaries, when spoken with grace, often earn more respect than endless sacrifice. And here is something else: when you set boundaries, you give others permission to do the same. Your example shows them it is possible to live with dignity, without being consumed by demands. Boundaries also protect your inner peace. When you know what you will and will not allow, life feels lighter. You are no longer pulled in every direction. You walk straighter, with purpose, along your own chosen path. Strategic silence taught us restraint. Deep listening gave us wisdom. Inner control gave us direction. Calm in chaos gave us resilience. Setting our own course gave us freedom. And now, boundaries give us protection, the guardrails that keep us safe on the road of life. But boundaries alone are not enough. Once you protect your path, you must also learn how to carry yourself along it with confidence, with dignity, with presence. That is where our next lesson takes us, the quiet power of appearance, and how sharpening it can shape the way the world sees you. Trait 8, sharpen your appearance. When you've learned to set boundaries with grace, you begin to protect your inner world. But the Stoics also remind us that how we present ourselves to the outer world matters too. Because whether we realize it or not, our appearance speaks before we ever open our mouths. Now, appearance here does not mean vanity. It does not mean chasing trends or trying to look younger than your years. It means showing respect for yourself, and for the people around you by carrying yourself with dignity. I remember watching my grandfather when I was young. He was a simple man, a farmer most of his life. His clothes were never expensive, but they were always clean. His shoes were polished. His posture was straight. Even when he walked into a crowded room silently, people noticed him. Not because he was trying to impress, but because his appearance reflected self-respect. The Stoics taught that virtue shows itself in action, but it also shows itself in presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." To me, this also means that we do not let the chaos of life make us careless, messy, or defeated. Instead, we present ourselves with calm strength. Our appearance becomes a reflection of our inner order. Think about how you feel when you dress with intention. On an ordinary day, maybe you wear whatever is comfortable. But when you take a little more care, pressing your shirt, grooming yourself, standing tall, don't you notice a change? Your confidence rises. People treat you differently. And more importantly, you treat yourself differently. Sharpening your appearance is not about ego. It is about alignment. When the outside matches the strength you're building on the inside, your whole being feels balanced. And people sense it. They may not say it, but they feel it. They see the calm in your eyes, the steadiness in your step, the quiet confidence in the way you carry yourself. I once worked with a man who rarely spoke in meetings. But whenever he entered the room, people paid attention. His clothes were neat, his expression calm, his presence unshaken. When he finally did speak, his words carried weight. Not just because of what he said, but because his whole appearance signaled discipline and respect. And here's something important: sharpening your appearance doesn't have to cost much. It's not about designer labels or luxury. It's about simplicity, cleanliness, and care. It's about the small details: how you shake hands, how you look someone in the eye, how you stand when you speak. These things tell the world, without a word, who you are. Strategic silence gave us restraint. Deep listening gave us wisdom. Inner control gave us direction. Calm in chaos gave us resilience. Boundaries gave us protection. And now, sharpening our appearance gives us presence, the quiet authority that tells the world we are not careless passengers, but conscious travelers on the path of life. And once you've sharpened your appearance, the next lesson becomes clear: the power of a smile. Because while your appearance commands respect, your smile opens hearts. That is where our journey takes us next. Trait 9, use your smile as a weapon. After sharpening your appearance, you gain presence, the kind of presence that commands respect without a word. But respect alone is not enough. To truly connect with others, to disarm tension, and to spread strength, you must learn the quiet power of a smile. Now, I don't mean the fake smile we put on for photos, or the polite smile we give a stranger we'll never meet again. I mean the genuine smile that comes from calmness inside. A smile born not of pretending, but of peace. I remember a moment years ago when I faced a heated conflict at work. A colleague and I had a serious disagreement. He was red in the face, his voice sharp, ready to fight every point. In the past, I might have matched his anger with my own. But that day, I stayed steady. I listened. And when I finally responded, I began with a simple smile. Not mocking, not forced, just a calm, steady smile that said, "I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to find a way forward." Something shifted. His voice lowered. His shoulders relaxed. Within minutes, the conversation softened. That smile disarmed him. It changed the energy in the room. And in that moment, I saw the truth: sometimes, a smile is stronger than a sword. The Stoics understood this. Seneca wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness." A smile is the simplest act of kindness, and yet it carries immense power. It can ease tension in conflict. It can give hope to someone who feels invisible. It can remind others that even in a difficult world, goodness still exists. Think about your own life. Have you ever been comforted by a stranger's smile in a grocery store, or uplifted by the warm smile of a loved one after a hard day? These moments are small, but they linger. They remind us that connection is not always in words, but in presence. And here's the beauty: a smile is not only for others, it is for you too. When you smile, even gently, your body relaxes. Your heart softens. Your mind shifts from fear to courage. In a way, your smile becomes a mirror of your inner strength, reflecting the calm you've worked so hard to build through silence, listening, and control. Of course, smiling is not about ignoring pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing your response. When life throws storms at you, and you can still find the strength to smile, you are telling the world, "You cannot break me. I remain whole." Strategic silence gave us restraint. Deep listening gave us wisdom. Inner control gave us direction. Calm in chaos gave us resilience. Boundaries gave us protection. Sharpening our appearance gave us presence. And now, using our smile gives us connection, the ability to bring light even in darkness, to soften hardness with quiet strength. And yet, connection alone is not enough. Because as you grow, you'll realize not everyone deserves unlimited access to your energy or influence. The next lesson teaches us how to protect our path even further, how to stay calm and firm by setting boundaries with grace. But beyond boundaries, there's an even deeper art: staying calm not only when people push you, but when the world itself falls apart. That is where we go next. Trait 10, presence and depth. When you've learned to speak less, to choose your words carefully, and to carry yourself with calm strength, something remarkable begins to happen. You no longer need to chase attention, your very presence commands it. This is the final trait of those who speak less: presence and depth. Have you ever met someone who didn't say much, yet somehow you felt their weight in the room? Maybe it was the quiet elder at the dinner table, who spoke only once, but everyone leaned in to listen. Or maybe it was a leader who didn't waste words, but whose silence carried more influence than 100 speeches. That is presence. That is depth. The Stoics believed that a person's true strength is not in how much they speak, but in how deeply they live. Marcus Aurelius never tried to impress the crowds. He lived in alignment with his values, and that alignment gave him a quiet authority. People respected him not for constant words, but for steady presence. I once knew a teacher who embodied this. He never raised his voice, never rushed his words. In fact, in the classroom, long silences would sometimes stretch. At first, students fidgeted, unsure of what to do. But then, slowly, everyone leaned in, listening, waiting. His calm presence taught more than his words. It showed us that wisdom is not always in speaking, it's in being. And here's the truth: presence is built over time. It is shaped by your choices, your character, your discipline. When you live with integrity, when your actions match your values, people feel it. You don't need to explain yourself. Your life speaks for you. Depth, too, comes from experience. It comes from reflection, from struggle, from years of living and learning. By the time you're past 40, you've seen enough joy and enough pain to know that life is fragile. That awareness gives your silence meaning. When you pause before speaking, people sense the thought behind it. When you finally speak, your words carry the weight of a life truly lived. Presence and depth cannot be faked. You can dress well, you can practice your smile, but if you have no inner steadiness, people will feel the emptiness. True presence comes when the inside and the outside align, when your silence, your gaze, your posture all reflect the peace you've cultivated within. Think about it: when you sit calmly in a storm, when you listen deeply instead of rushing to talk, when you speak thoughtfully rather than recklessly, you naturally build presence. You don't demand respect, you earn it. You don't chase attention, it comes to you. Strategic silence gave us restraint. Deep listening gave us wisdom. Inner control gave us direction. Calm in chaos gave us resilience. Setting our own course gave us freedom. Boundaries gave us protection. Sharpening our appearance gave us presence. A smile gave us connection. And now, presence and depth bring it all together, making you someone who doesn't just live, but lives with gravity, with meaning, with unshakable strength. This is the gift of speaking less. It's not about muting yourself. It's about living in such a way that when you do speak, the world listens. And from here, the journey doesn't end. Because once you've built presence and depth, the next challenge is how you use it, not for pride, not for dominance, but for service. For lifting others, for guiding with wisdom, for embodying what the Stoics called the examined life. The Stoics remind us, sometimes, the loudest voice is silence. It commands respect. It shapes wisdom. It transforms chaos into clarity. So, speak less. Listen more. And let your silence become your greatest strength. If you found wisdom here, subscribe to continue your journey in Stoicism. Because this is not just philosophy. It is a way of life.